So I kind of want to preface this video by saying that the T-Rex and Spinosaurus figures are both going to be getting replaced for me by Edel Collectibles. So while I am a little bit upset in this video with some of the issues that I have with the figure, they're both going to be getting replaced, and I'll definitely post an update on how the new figures are, but I have to just commend Edel Collectibles for their excellent customer service. Now, it did take me a few months to get the figures, but he did always keep up with me through Messenger, and even more than that, he's agreed to replace both of the figures once he finishes new figures for me. So I'll definitely give an update on how it goes when I receive them, and some of the differences that I have between each set of figures. Now, I will say I'm definitely a little bit upset, especially in the Spinosaurus review towards the end. But there is still no denying that the sculpt and the paintwork on these figures is like show-stoppingly beautiful. Probably some of the best pieces that I own in regards to their sculpt and their paint. The fact that they were handmade makes it that much better. But I'm still a little hesitant on my recommendations for these figures, considering the asking price. And we'll see when the new figures come in how the articulation goes there. But it's definitely a very, very high-end collectible, and you have to think if you're buying it, you are almost buying a statue that you can move around. It's definitely not a figure with a lot of playability where you're going to sit there and pose it and move it around nonstop. You kind of want to find a static pose for the figures and kind of set it and forget it.
Atomic Fair.
All right, guys, so just pulling him off the stand here. You can see some of the sculpt work here. I'll show the face and the inside of the mouth and the teeth. Now his tongue there has a bit of a crack on it. I'm gonna get into that later. That kind of goes directly into my issues with the figures when it comes to the tongue and stuff like that. I'll get into that a bit later. But just looking at the sculpting work here, you can see how absolutely beautiful it is. You're also going to notice some paint chipping that I've encountered just from moving the figure around on a pretty basic level. Let's see, some of it here on top a little bit. It looks a lot more noticeable in person, and you can really, if you look down there at the tail, there's some more paint chipping. And a little bit here and around the knee joints and the ankles. But overall, the paint and the sculpt on the figure is absolutely perfect. Before the paint chipping. So yeah, that pretty much goes for most of my positives about the figure would be the sculpting, the paint work, and everything. I would almost call these movable models. They're hardly even figures, to be honest with you. This and the Spinosaurus, like I said, they're really beautiful, but they're definitely not figures or anything that would be made for a child. Definitely not. But I would hardly even call them figures. Now, we're going to get into the articulation a bit here. And the articulation on these figures is a little rough. I mean, it's very good. It's very good. The problem is the figure can't stand on its own. I have a really hard time just getting his head to even stay up. I mean, look, so I'll do that. It'll do that. But look how, yeah, it just kind of falls right back down. So the head here is in a ball joint, and there's another ball joint here in the neck for this part of the head. Now, this part of the head is fine, but it's when it comes to moving the neck around and moving the head up and stuff, you kind of have to position it in a certain way to get the head to stay mounted up. But yeah, it eventually just kind of falls. There is full articulation in the hands here. So in the elbows, in the fingers, all that good stuff. And also in the legs. Yeah, I definitely kind of want to be careful with it. I don't want to break anything. So yeah, the articulation is very tight. You can kind of take the knees and do this with them, but it feels just very, very sketchy. And the paint scratches just so easily. So easily. That's why I really say that these are like moving models. I mean, you can move it, but the more you move it, the more the paint begins to chip. It's chipping there. It's chipping around the knees. Where else? I'm trying to think of all the issues that I had here. There's some, you can see here, the paint is cracking. Yeah, so there are quite a few issues when it comes to like posability and stuff like that of the figure. But if you're really just trying to leave it on the stand and just not move it around too much, then you'll be pretty happy with it. But it's when you start trying to move it around. The Spinosaurus isn't quite as bad, but the T-Rex is really, really rough. To be honest with you, when I first got the figure, just opening it, see, this arm will no longer move because just opening it, from the tape being stuck on the figure or whatever, it popped the hands off. One of the arms and one of the hands. So this arm is no longer movable. I had to super glue it back in there. And this hand here on this side is no longer movable. So that's super glued in there. So yeah, it's kind of crappy to be honest with you. Other issues I had were because the head fell off. When the head fell off, 2 of the teeth popped out. I had to pop those back in. And just getting the figure to review, getting him off the stand and taking him to my review area, the freaking head popped off again, and that is why that tongue is cracked, because I actually had to super glue the tongue back in there because the tongue had fallen out. And I'm not sure if you can even see this on camera, maybe a little bit, but there's a crack right along here that this part completely popped off. Well, not popped off, it snapped off. I had to super glue that back on. So there's a lot of parts of this figure that I had to re-super glue on just from the head falling off and and the teeth falling out and stuff like that, just from the really, really loose articulation. I mean, I'm trying to tell you guys this figure will not stand on his own. I have to put him on the base. And even then, it's like the base is a little strange, right? So I guess there you go. Something like that. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, the figure is really awesome. The sculpt is really amazing. But I will tell you this, for the $600 asking price of this figure, I unfortunately have to say that it is completely not worth the asking price at all. I would not suggest anybody go along, unless you just have money lying around and you don't care, you really want an accurate Tyrannosaurus Rex sculpt. If that's the case, then go ahead and pick this up. But if you're looking for something that's going to be like a movable figure, that's going to be extremely, extremely high quality in terms of the paint and the chipping and stuff like that, you're not going to find it here. Because like I said, you have to understand that both this and the Spinosaurus figure are completely handmade. So you're not really going to be expecting that like level of quality of paint to where it just won't chip and to where the joints are going to be completely tight. And if that's what you're expecting from this figure, then definitely don't pick it up because you're not going to find it here, unfortunately. But the figure is really amazing in terms of the sculpt, in terms of the paint. I feel pretty redundant at this point. But yeah, that's like my review of this Edel Collectibles Tyrannosaurus Rex figure. Before I go, I'll do some size comparisons here. All right, so this is the Hammond Collection Baryonyx. So you can kind of see the size comparison there. I'm going to throw in a few Raptors here. Now, these are all from the Hammond collection. If you guys don't really collect the Jurassic Park figures, then you're probably not even going to know. But for those that do, the Hammond collection is like the more highly detailed, like articulated figure line from Mattel. So yeah, that's some of the size comparisons there. Now let me get the Spinosaurus and I'll compare it with that as well. Now, unfortunately, it's really hard to get a good angle where both of these guys are in the shot. They are pretty large figures, but this is the Edel Collectibles Spinosaurus next to the Tyrannosaurus Rex. I'll link it down in the description below if you want to watch my review of that figure. But yeah, you can see here that the Spinosaurus is actually quite a bit larger than the Tyrannosaurus Rex. It's actually a pretty noticeable size difference. And I'd say it's probably pretty accurate to the movie. But yeah, they look really good together. Both figures are absolutely amazing in terms of the sculpt and the paint work. But when you can't really get the figure to stand, like the Spinosaurus, you can see here I have to have him mounted down on one arm because he simply can't stand on his own. It kind of defeats the whole purpose of of owning the figure almost. I mean, as beautiful as it is, I can't get the figures to stand on their own. So, Yeah, it's something you have to keep in mind. Now, if you go on Edo Collectibles Instagram page, you can see that they have the Tyrannosaurus Rex standing on one leg and stuff like that. Maybe I got a defective one. I kind of doubt it. And honestly, I'm just going to have to say that, you know, for the asking price, either one of these figures definitely are not worth it if you're just like your average consumer and you don't have the extra money laying around like I kind of did to buy these figures and, you know, review them. But yeah, comment what you guys think about the Edo Collectibles Tyrannosaurus Rex figure down below. Like I said, you can click the link to watch my Spinosaurus review. And for this video, that's all I got, guys. So until the next one, be safe and stay well. Bye-bye.